Hi, welcome to another episode of the Investor's Guide to Hard Money Lending, sponsored by Corelend, brought to you by Corelend Financial. Today we have Brian Trippe with Brian Trippe Real Estate in Birmingham, Alabama with us. So welcome, Brian.
Super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. And we have a diverse group of visitors come and be on this podcast. Tell us a little bit about what you do in the investor real estate world.
Sure. Yeah, I got my start in 2012. I did a wholesale deal, made $10,000 45 days after I learned what wholesaling was. For me, it made real estate real. Like, it made this thing about making money real. You can actually make money transactionally in real estate. Never believed I could do anything like that before, so it really changed my mindset more than anything. And then from there, I built a very large wholesaling company, definitely the largest in the state of Alabama. We were doing a lot of deals, and that kind of came to an end towards the end of 2017 as I started kind of transitioning. I never wanted to be a wholesaler. I kind of just kind of fell into that. I wanted to be an investor. And wholesaling was not investing. I just had a sales and marketing business, and I never wanted to do that. So I'd accumulated, enough money to where I can go out there and start doing deals on my own. I was acquiring rentals. 59-space mobile home park, couple of commercial buildings, things like that, single-family residences along the way as well. And I did that pretty heavily up until about COVID. And today, I've started a large real estate investment association, a big meetup group in Birmingham, one of the largest ones in the whole country. We had over 300 people attending our group before COVID shut us down. But what I'm doing today is I mainly act as an advisor. I act as someone who tries to help people along their real estate journey. What are you trying to do? Most people who come to me and they want to do real estate, well, I want to flip houses, or I want to wholesale, or I want to. Well, it's like, why? Let's try to understand what are you really trying to accomplish here. What I find is most people they want to have freedom, and what that means to most people, they think it's financial freedom. They really just want time freedom. They want to be able to do what they want to do, when they want to do it, with whom they want to do it. So it's like, okay, well, how can we achieve time freedom? Well, let's do that through, you're probably not going to do that through an active real estate business. You're not going to do that by just doing a bunch of flips, a bunch of wholesales. Why are we doing this? We're doing this so we can buy passive income, so we can buy rental property, so that we can actually achieve the freedom that we're looking to give. So what do I do mostly today? I try to be more like that advisory role and try to help people achieve what they really want. Not what they say what they want, but what they really want.
Yeah, and you start off it seems a common occurrence that we start off wholesaling. We start off being this and I don't know if you can speak to this, but you don't necessarily have as much expenses going into that. You can make a quick lick. You can get into it, get that make that first $10,000, and then you've got a little capital that you can start with. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think just like for me, I got started because I didn't have any money and I had bad credit. That's how I got started. And I think the allure of wholesaling is you can get into it's a low barrier of entry. You can get into it with not a lot of upfront costs. And then flipping the way that, if you have a great financial partner, which Corelend obviously is to a lot of people, and you know how to find a great deal, then you can go in and start flipping properties. I think one of the bigger turnoffs to flipping for people who are new is they don't know where to get the money. And I think that's all I love about you guys, is that you're providing an opportunity for people who may not have, what it would normally cost to do a flip. You're going to provide that. You're going to take away that excuse, or take away that barrier to where anybody can do this now. So what I teach people to do right out the gate is, if you don't know anything about real estate, let's learn how to find a great deal. Once we learn how to find a great deal, we can now do anything. We can wholesale, we can flip, we can buy and hold it as a rental. So we can partner with people. It all starts with a great deal.
Now, how do you go about finding these great deals? Because I spend a lot of time talking to our borrowers about, okay, we need to analyze this deal. What does it look like? What is your exit strategy? What are your thoughts on what does a great deal look like?
Well, a great deal, it can be different to different people. Normally, we're looking for something. For me, I'm looking for something for 50% of what it's actually worth. I want to try to get something for half of what it's actually worth, the as is value. That's a great deal for me. But if you're in a different situation, it could be different for you. How do you find a great deal? There are lots of ways to find a great deal. But where I see people get into the most amount of trouble when it comes to a wholesale, you do a deal, maybe grassroots. Maybe you went door knocking, which is not really a thing anymore because of a safety issue. But maybe you're cold calling. Maybe you're driving for dollars. You're driving around looking, and you see something that's obviously vacant, and you just skip trace and you find the owner, and you just cold call them or send them a cold text. Those are some great kind of grassroots, low, cheap, if not free ways to find great deals. But where I see people get into the most amount of trouble is they'll do their first deal, they'll make a nice $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, and they want to try to take that money and quote unquote reinvest it into marketing. And now we're going to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into something that you're not even good at. You don't even know how to talk to a seller, and you're going to spend thousands of dollars on all these leads that are coming in, and you don't even know how to talk to a seller. You don't know how to negotiate. You don't know sales. You've had no sales training. And so you're spending all this money on these leads that it's going to lead you nowhere. And all that money you just made is now going to evaporate like quickly. So what I suggest to people who are just starting out, let's learn the foundations of real estate. Let's learn our streets. If we're in Memphis or if we're in Birmingham like I'm in, let's pick a pocket, let's pick an area, and let's learn this area, and let's drive this area so we know every single vacant house that's in this zip code or that's in this small little pocket. Let's learn this area first. And I want to do this. I want to do 5, 8, 10 deals before I start investing real money into marketing. Because we can invest small bits into like a driving for dollars app, or into maybe some skip tracing things, or I can invest a couple $100 here or there. But when you're sitting there talking about thousands and thousands of dollars, it just doesn't make any sense because you're not any good at it. You got to get good at it.
And yes, you talk about knowing your areas, and that is, I think, it is unique to a lot of cities, but Memphis and Birmingham, very similar. It is not like, hey, I can pick this zip code, and all in this zip code is great. You're going to need to dial that down by the street and then by the block, because you could be looking something 2 blocks over on that same street. It's truly knowing your area is going to be key to do it. And knowing what the population is in that area. Is it typically, okay, are you going to, like, say, for example, in some of our zip codes, you're not going to do a flip over there, maybe a turnkey flip, but not a retail flip, because this is more, 70% of the people rent over here. So you've got to be very smart about what your strategy is. So how do you look at that? When you're telling new investors, would you say how to start on their flips? Or, and you know the area first, what do you recommend for them to be their first flip to be?
I don't recommend people flip houses out the gate. I think that's too risky. Mm-hmm. You're talking about brand new, right?
No, I'm talking, they made their start in wholesaling. They built up a little capital. Now they want to try their first flip.
Okay. So in that case, then I'm okay with that because they've learned how to find the great deal. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because again, all real estate starts with a great deal. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be hard to mess up a flip if you bought at 50 cents on the dollar. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be hard to mess it up. Now, yeah, you could have bad contractors. You could go in and just completely not get the repairs right. Hopefully you've got some good checks and balances when you use a good company who's going to fund your deals. They're going to help you with that. But hopefully we've checked against that. But as far like what you were saying about your area, Birmingham, I guess Memphis is too, it is absolutely street by street. You can't just say, hey, this zip code. Now, in the higher retail areas, it's maybe more like that. But when you're talking about, like, Birmingham's a cash flow market. Memphis is a cash flow market. People invest in Memphis for cash flow. That's why they're coming here if they're coming here from out of state. Same with Birmingham. If they're coming into Birmingham, they're not coming there to flip houses. They're coming there to buy and hold. So they want to buy at a great price, and they want to have great rents, and they want to do a good job of the rehab. They want to buy on a good street. They want all these different factors that Birmingham's known for. So if we're going to go in here and we want to flip a house in this area or this zip code, we've got to know. We have to know. This street right here, these are $80,000 houses, and I'm being generous. 2 streets over, it could be $150,000 more starter homes, $200,000 houses. So we have to know that difference. So if we're starting out, we've got to know our area. So I wouldn't be flipping a house just because I can. I got to know the area first. I got to have a great realtor, or maybe I am a great realtor. I've got to know the difference in these areas. I've got to have a great team, because I can't just rely on me. I've got to have a great contractor, a great crews. I've got to have all these pieces. And how do I get those pieces? Well, you network, you talk to other investors, you learn these things, and you learn that as you go. When you're starting to learn the area, maybe you started wholesaling first, and you're starting to learn the area, you're starting to learn the greater Birmingham or Memphis area, or wherever you are. Now we can go network, and now we can talk intelligently. We can go to some of these meetup groups and maybe some of these conferences that are happening in my area, and we can start talking to other people who are doing these things that can kind of help us. And we can talk intelligently because we're doing deals.
Right. And you bring up a point of find you a good realtor, or be a good realtor in that. In this market, you could have an agent that's got 20 years of experience, but how much experience do they have in investment properties? Because
Or in that area.
Or in that area.
Yeah.
So, and we're seeing, like, in a market like we are, where a lot of retail stuff is sitting, where the investor space is still moving, because we are a cash flowing city, like Birmingham, a cash flowing. So you see some agents trying to shift their business to that, but not knowing full well what that really means, because you want to make sure that you have a good team. If you're a first time coming in to try to even do a buy and hold, and you don't live in this area, you want that agent that does know that street, that does know that area. Because I've got one that I've got listed right now that they went through a hard money lender, but a national one, and they're way over leveraged in this area, when it's like, okay, you're one of two houses that is right there. There's the railroad tracks, and the train stops there for 30 minutes to an hour on end, and they've got to take a 15-minute detour. So you're not going to get market rents in that. You're not going to do this. It is what it is. So that knowledge and having a good team around you is so crucial, especially if you're out of state, or if you're new, and that you need people that know more than you do.
Yeah. Your team's everything. It really is. And in the very beginning, you don't have a team.
No.
It's just you. And it's just maybe you have a mentor, maybe you've been watching YouTube channels, maybe you've been listening to this podcast. So you have an idea, but you've got to get out and meet people. And when you start doing your first deal or two, well, the first deal is everything. Once you've done your first deal, what you learn from 0 to 1 is you're not going to learn that much more from 1 to 2 or from 3 to 4 from any other jump. So 0 to 1 is so massive, and you're going to now, once you've done a deal, you know a good title attorney. Mm-hmm. You at least know some realtors. Maybe you don't know a good realtor yet, but you know some realtors. You know other investors. You know some handymen, or you know some contractors. So you're starting to kind of get your feet underneath you and learning real estate. And again, you've got to understand your area more than anything. That's foundational. That's 101. You got to do that first. Drive it.
And I would say you're a good contractor. That is key on things too, of knowing what you're trying to accomplish, because it could be very different if you're looking in that area. Okay, what finishes do we need to have for retail versus what finishes do we need for rentals, and what's going to drive that market rent there? So I would say a good contractor, because they can make or break you too. One that you trust. And that's where we at Corelend, we do have a list of preferred general contractors, because we know that they're going to go in, get the job done, get it done quickly, not have a bunch of change orders, because that can ruin your deal, because that is time, not only time, but it is also real money too. But being in a hard money loan, it's time is of essence. You've got 6 months. You've got a contractor that's taking 3 weeks to get the first stage done. Well, you're a month into that already. You want that contractor to get in there. They are done with it in 2 months. So then if you're going to sell it, you've got months to sell it. If you're going to refinance it, you've got months to get it refinanced.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's key to have a good team no matter what. And why would you say use hard money versus say, hey, I've got a partner in here? Why would you pick doing hard money over a partner?
Yeah. So the financing piece of real estate is obviously this is the part of real estate that I hesitate to say it's the most important, but it's certainly so key, and there's so many different routes you can go, and it's what you choose is going to make or break your deal in a lot of cases. Mm-hmm. You buy right, then that solves a lot of problems down the road.
Yes.
So that's number one. But number two is what financing are we putting in place? Like, why would we maybe get the seller to hold the note? while we rehab this thing versus, or go get a bank loan, go get a hard money loan, use a private individual. We can lay all these out. They're all useful. They're all useful in their own right. Why would I use a hard money loan? Hard money loan for me personally is speed, the ease, the convenience, especially if you already have a relationship with this company, whatever company you're using. Hopefully it's Corelend. But if you're using Corelend, the first one is always going to be the one that you've got the most paperwork, you've got the most, just because they have to get to know you. They have to get to know your deal. They have to get to know, you have to build a relationship. It's relationship based. But once I've done, you would speak to this more than I would, but if I've done 5 loans with you and they've all been successful, what's the likelihood that you're going to lend to me on the 6th time?
Oh, 100%. And you're probably going to get, it's going to be even easier because we know your program. We know you're going to get that approval because you've done what you've said you're going to do.
Right. And it keeps getting easier and easier and easier. So it's all of these different things. If you're using a bank loan, the great thing about a bank loan is the interest rate's probably going to be a lot better, right? It's going to be more, it's going to take you a little bit more time to get that. It's not like I can just, hey, let's go. Let's get this thing done. That's the benefit of having a hard money lender is the speed and the ease, especially the more you do with them and the better the relationship you build with them.
Yes, and you talk about speed because a lot of people like to say that hard money is the same as cash. In the speed, yes, but we ran into a bar. It's like their closing attorney's like, we've got to have an amendment. This isn't cash. It's still a loan. It is still a loan, and we are still going to underwrite these because we want it to be a good deal. It's not where, hey, this cash, I just need this for the purchase price, and we're just going to give it. We're still going to underwrite it because what we don't want as you as a borrower to be unsuccessful in, like, say, your first deal. Because if you don't win, we don't win, nobody wins, and it's not a good experience.
And you guys don't want the property back.
No, we do not want the properties back.
Right.
We want you to have success so then you sell it or refinance, whatever, so you're going to come right back to us and do another one. But yeah, and I think it's too, is when we do underwrite on hard money, it is, I tell borrowers, if you're having to bring cash to the closing table towards the purchase price, we think you're paying too much for that property. Because it's like, if you're using hard money, you typically don't want to bring a lot to the closing table, and you've got a higher ARV than what you think you're going to.
Yep. And I think what's happening right now, just because of the economy we're in and the real estate landscape that we're kind of in right now, and I'm speaking more holistically, nationally. I don't know Memphis specifically, but I've talked to a lot of people in this region, and they all kind of agree that things aren't what they were a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
No.
Right? So what's happening now is there are house flippers out there that are trying to make a deal when it's not a deal. They're trying to make it a deal, and it's not quite a deal.
They're not getting that great deal that we first talked about.
They're not getting the great deal that they got 2-3 years ago, but they're still trying to make things work. You know what? I'll take a little less profit. You know what? I'll take, maybe I'll skimp on a couple. I'll cut a few corners here and there. Nothing major, nothing huge, but my finishes won't quite be as good. Well, what's happening now, and this is foundational. This goes back to the single most important thing in real estate. If you're not buying it right, you're going to have problems in the end. You're going to have stress at the end. And is it harder to find a great deal? Is it harder to find 50 cents on the dollar, 60 cents on the dollar? Obviously, these numbers differ depending on what the price point you're at. Mm-hmm. But I like to be at 50 cents on the dollar for properties that I do. Most of the properties I do are going to be these turnkey type of properties that you already mentioned, where I'm selling them for 100, 120, 130.
The margins just aren't as big there.
But they are if I'm buying them for 50 cents on the dollar.
Yes.
And so that's, for me, that's kind of like my go-to. I can't deviate. Once I start deviating from that principle, now I'm going to start having a lot of problems on the back end. I'm going to start having issues with whoever my loan is with, if I have a loan. Because
you got to get it appraised once you're trying to get it sent out there. And you got to worry about, if you're getting it 50 cents on the dollar, you're not worried about that property appraising when it's been rehabbed because it's going to appraise. But if you're
I don't think I'm ever going to be, and I think that this is the point where we need to get to as an investor. You can't be at the point to where you're worrying about it appraising.
Right.
Because if it doesn't appraise, it wasn't a good deal.
Right.
So that's it, and this is where it's so difficult to do this. You've got to take the emotion out of real estate. You have to. And again, it's hard to do that, but the longer you do it, hopefully the easier it becomes. But once you take that emotion out of it, it's like, look, it didn't appraise. That just means it's not a good deal. Period. End of story. I've got one of two options here. I can either throw the deal away or I can go back and try to renegotiate a better deal. That's it. It's not a deal.
Right.
So don't try to force it into being a deal because it's only going to create problems down the road.
And you are exactly right there. I mean, because you can't get so excited about, say this is your first one, I really want this property. The numbers don't work. You have to take the emotion out because you want it to be a good deal because you don't, like you said, don't worry about it appraising. It's going to appraise if you've gotten a good deal and the numbers work. So, but we see that where they got so excited about it being their first deal and it's like, hey, we don't think you need to renegotiate this price. You need to go this. No, I want it. I still want it. And then whose fault is it at the end when they have issues down the road?
I personally, just because I've seen it so many times, I personally have a problem with if my first deal is a flip, I've seen people get into a lot of trouble there. Mm-hmm. There's just too many moving parts for a brand new person to come in and try to flip a house. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not saying you can't be successful. If you find that smoking hot deal, you're 50, 60 cents on the dollar, you've got a longer runway, you got a longer leash, you got the more mistakes you make, it's not going to hurt you as much down the road. But it's difficult for me just because I've seen so many people get burned. Let's start with the basics. It all starts with finding a great deal. Let's learn the market. Let's learn how to find a great deal. And we're probably going to wholesale that thing. We're going to find a great deal. And we're just going to sell that deal to somebody else. Let's make a quick buck. Hey, we learned. What did we learn here? Let's do an autopsy of this deal. Let's learn. And then let's get really comfortable. And now when we go to Corelend and say, hey, I want to do my first deal with you. I want to do my first loan with you. I've already done 5 deals. I know what a great deal is. You're going to want to lend to someone like that more so than you're going to want to lend to someone who's brand new.
Yes.
Because even if it is a great deal, they're going to, hopefully they've got someone holding their hand. If you're going to flip and it's your first deal, I would want you to partner with somebody.
And that makes sense because if they've got, partner with somebody with experience.
Correct.
You don't want the blind leading the blind.
Partner with someone who is already doing it.
Yes, and that's key there. But and you speak to that of the first deal doing a flip. I agree with you. Wholesale it, build up your capital, and then your first flip, it does not need to be. Or a lot of ones they want to try to go ahead and refinance it, but their credit's not there. I'm like, all right, well we'll do this deal. It's going to be you're doing the burst strategy only to sell it to somebody else, and then you can build up more capital there again and work on your credit there. So then when you do your first flip, you've got enough liquidity. You can plan for some of these unforeseen events that will always come up. You don't know. We're in Memphis and Birmingham. You could have gotten this where it's completely rehabbed, and then you go back and it's been broken into. And then we had one of our borrowers. She's a great borrower, but one of her properties, it was one thing after the other, and finally it was broken into. It was something else got stolen. Then a tree fell on it. It was a total loss, but it was insured, so she worked out just fine, and she's on to doing more loans with us. So, but you've got to, as a new one, you don't always know to plan for all of those things that can happen, like Murphy's Law, of where if something's going to happen, it's going to on this deal.
Yeah.
So,
Alyssa, let me ask you a question. Who is your audience here? Like, what are their biggest questions? What are their biggest issues?
They're wanting to create wealth. They're wanting to get out of the hamster. The hamster wheel. They're wanting to figure out how to create wealth, like you said, in time. Being able to spend time with their kids. They want to create a retirement, or they want to create generational wealth for their kids. They want to leave something to leave a legacy for their kids.
Yeah. So, and I love that, and I think that's a lot of people's reasons why. Well, let's understand things first. Wholesaling is a transactional, active real estate business. Flipping a house is a transactional, active real estate business. That's a job. These are jobs, and there's nothing wrong with that. Right. That's fine. That's great. You've got to start somewhere, and you've got to build capital. Most people need to build capital up. But why are we in real estate to begin with? We're in it. You want the generational wealth. You want these things that you want. How are you going to achieve those things? You're not going to achieve those things with an active real estate business. You're not. You're going to achieve those things with buying passively, buying passive investments, probably real estate. Real estate is probably the best investment I know of. Nothing has gone up over time like real estate, but there's nothing wrong with flipping houses. It's a great tool. It's a great thing to use to get more capital so that you can go and buy more rental property, more passive income.
And that's where you say, like, why are a lot of these people starting? I see a lot of people that are now younger now, but a lot of ones that are in their 40s or they're all the way into their career. And we saw our parents' generation, they lived on pensions when they retired. Well, we've got a whole other generation starting to think about their own retirement. Like, I don't have that pension. Right. Is Social Security going to be there? We've seen, the recession hit. You saw our parents' generation where their stocks were impacted and their 401ks were wiped out. And so I think you've got a lot of mentality people now getting into thinking, I'm going to start this because typically real estate doesn't go poof. And if it does, hopefully you've got insurance on it to where if it catches fire and burns to the ground. But they're thinking of that, like, this could be my retirement. This will be freedom for me and time and traveling later on with my family that I'm not stressed about. Yeah. So I see a lot of that. A lot of first-timers are now in that kind of middle stage of their career and thinking to the future retirement. Yeah. If it looks different than what our parents' generation did.
Yeah, and listen, I get it too. Like, I get so many people, Brian, I want to get started in real estate. Mm-hmm. Great. Let's talk about it. What does that look like to you? A lot of people have been working a corporate job for 20, 30 years, and they're sick of it. They don't want to do it anymore. They don't have a whole lot of retirement built up. They got maybe some, but not enough to feel comfortable. Okay, cool. Are you okay with essentially starting a new job? Because that's what real estate is in the beginning for most people. If you don't have money or a whole lot of money to begin with, you can't invest. You don't have anything to invest. Mm-hmm. So what are we? We now have a job. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. We just got to know that going into it. Mm-hmm. And there are very few companies, active real estate companies, wholesale companies, fix and flip companies that are sellable and that have sold. So that's probably not what you're going to be doing. I'm not saying they don't exist. There have been a few, but that's probably not what we're doing here. We're probably not building a wholesale business to sell. We're probably not building a rehabbing business to sell one day. Those things they exist sort of, but they don't really exist. So we got to know going into this that, hey, we're doing these things to reach an end. Okay, it's a means to get to an end.
And that end is a portfolio of properties.
I don't know of any better way. And it doesn't take, Alyssa, it doesn't take as many as people think. You go out here, even if you have good credit and you have a good W-2 job, you can go out here and get a loan on a $200,000 property that's going to rent for what, $1,800, $1,750, something like that. And it's a good property, probably a newer property, maybe even a new build. Maybe it's newer construction.
Got a lot of those going on. Builders are building to rent.
If you have 10 of those, Alyssa, and they're paid off, you put them on 15-year notes and you don't cash flow them for 15 years because you don't need them. You don't need the cash flow. Right. You've got your W-2. You get 10 of these. They're gonna appreciate.
There's your pension right there.
There's your pension. They're gonna appreciate. The rents are gonna be completely tax-free for the most part because of depreciation. You've got the principal pay down, your tenant's paying everything down. Mm-hmm. What else do you need? You only need about 10 of those good properties. So people keep trying to overcomplicate real estate. We can take some wholesale, we can take some fix and flips, we can add fuel to the fire. Let's get an extra 30,000 here. Let's get an extra 40,000 here. Let's put that down on a new property. Mm-hmm. Let's do a few flips so we can let's expedite this. But it's not complicated. People try to, I know personally, this has just happened over the past 2 or 3 weeks. 3 different people have told me that they're quitting real estate or they've quit real estate. They've gone in debt through marketing. Imagine that. I went hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt from marketing to try to find deals. It's insane to me. I don't even understand it.
When you can drive for dollars.
Well, it just goes so far beyond that. You've got great wholesalers out there that we haven't even talked about. Yeah. We've got great wholesalers out there that are feeding properties that are good deals. We don't need to even do that. And then you've got people that just said, look, I flipped houses for 5 years. And I turn around and look at it. By the end of it, I made money on a lot of them, but I lost money on a few of them, and those losses were greater than the ones I made. Well, why did you lose that badly? And we go back and we look at it, and it's like, well, we didn't buy right.
That is the key. It goes back to that buying right.
So like people are like think that real estate, some of these people that think that I'm out of real estate now because it doesn't work or whatever these, no. It's not complicated. You're complicated. This is not a complicated business. We wholesale and or flip in order to get more money to buy more passive income. That's the game.
That's the game.
I don't know of anyone else out there now there's been some people who've built successful businesses, like real estate businesses, whether it's a brokerage or a property management company or a lending company. People have done these, ancillary services and they've built businesses out of that. Cool. But when you're sitting here talking about real estate, I don't know of any successful real estate person that hasn't done that business model. It's we flip and or wholesale to get money to buy passive income. That's it. We cannot overcomplicate this.
And I don't understand why more like licensed realtors don't think of that. Whereas, because at the end of the day, if you're just a licensed realtor, you've never used your knowledge to build your rental portfolio, then when you're done, you're done. Versus now you don't have all this passive income.
I made a whole video about realtors where they have the golden goose in their hand. Where do these sellers, you can do all the great marketing that you want to. Most sellers that have a distressed property, their number one go-to is still a realtor.
Yeah, I'll give you an example on one of these. It was a property that it came through with us being primarily investment brokerage. Anyway, it was a property over in Raleigh. I was going to list it, and I told her from the beginning, I said, I'm going to put an offer in on this property, but I want you to get the highest dollar amount. If that's my offer, then so be it. So we listed it. Mine happened to be the best offer because I could also change my commission structure where it would work. Like I will only take this because I have the vested interest. But at the end of the day, my offer netted her the most money for it, and she was happy as anything with it. So it's like you get an opportunity as an agent to find a distressed property. Hey, how can you parlay that into one of your own buy and hold rentals where you go and do it? And it worked out. Now we've got it rented. We're all in. We're greater than the 1% rule for the property, and it's a fantastic deal.
That's great.
So it's like you're parlaying where these use your knowledge to build your own wealth, not always for somebody else.
For sure.
So tell me about your biggest horror story. You've been through a lot.
Gosh.
Tell me about your biggest horror story you have.
In real estate, my biggest horror story. I don't have any crazy things. I wholesaled mostly. Wholesale is you're mostly free of risk wholesaling. I haven't done a lot of flips. That's not something I think there's a lot of risk in that. Now, there are people who do it and they're great at it and they love it. They love the transformation. They love all these things. But like a horror story for me would be like a bad tenant. I had a bad tenant.
Those are great too. Tell us about one of those.
No, well, a bad tenant where, we think that we're in a great, like Alabama is supposed to be this landlord-friendly state, right? Mm-hmm. It's what we hear about.
Yes.
It's a landlord-friendly state. I'm sure Tennessee is too. A lot of the quote-unquote red states are supposed to be landlord-friendly states. Well, when you're in the city limits of Birmingham and the laws are you still have state laws to go by, but it's a little bit different because you're in now in the city limits and it's not quite as friendly. And what I mean by that is one of the biggest ways in our county, our main county in Birmingham, they just don't have enough people working. So you go to file an eviction, what's supposed to take 2 or 3 months, it can take 6 to 8, 10 months to get somebody out just because they don't have enough people working in the county. Where I had to do a set out, this is before COVID, I had to do a set out of someone. And the guy told me, the constable who had to come out and actually kick the person out of the house. I had to be there. And the constable just straight up told me, here's my stack of work orders for today. Here are all the set outs I have to do today. There's 6. I can only do 2 in a day.
Oh, gosh.
That's the most I can do. But there's 6 coming in every day. And there's only 2 of us. There's one that works the north part of the county and one that works the south part of the county. So you've got it's just this huge backlog of trying to get somebody out. So my biggest horror stories are just trying to get somebody out of a house. And it's taken months and months and months. I'm supposed to be in this landlord-friendly state, and it's not
We had one of those.
It's friendly.
Yeah,
as
we
you
had
would
one
think.
of those tenants too. They didn't pay for months. It was during COVID, and we managed to get the rent assistance, caught them back up, but then she still wouldn't move out. And then during a freezing time, she claimed that the heat didn't work, called code on us when she turned off the gas pilot light, and then just turned the heat off, but then in hopes to try to freeze the pipe. So yes, you can. There's some stories out there.
Yeah.
So-
No, for sure. And I'm grateful I don't have those stories. I interview a lot of people. I have a great YouTube channel. I have a great podcast. I've interviewed a lot of people that got some stories. I interviewed a lady recently where she had tried to do a lease option. She had bought a house on a subject to, tried to do a lease option to somebody, and they just stopped paying on day one. And she's now she's in year 4. It's been over 3 years, and she still can't get them out. And meanwhile, she's had to pay the note because she bought it on a subject to, and she's got no cash flow coming in. So you hear stories like this where they didn't do the paperwork right. You didn't get mentored correctly, or you don't have the right paperwork. So these things you're trying to take it through the legal channels, and you're not even able to do that successfully because your paperwork wasn't right. So things like that bother me a lot, where people are trying to do these creative things in real estate and they don't really understand what they're doing. So I've heard a lot of horror stories like that.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to wrap up things here. So tell me, anything you want to tell our listeners about and viewers about your business?
Oh, not really. You guys can look me up, Brian Trippe. If anything I've said here is interesting, you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, all the stuff. So just go and find me if I said anything useful or interesting today. I'm a big proponent of what you guys are doing at Corelend. I think it's incredible. You're offering people really the thing that they need the most in order to do a flip. This is again, when I talk to people, the number one reason why they say they don't flip or why they don't get into real estate, the number one reason is money. The
BRRRR strategy. We've got a lot of those BRRRR strategies.
Right. The number 2 reason is education, but the number 1 reason is the financing. I can't find the financing piece. And when you guys are doing that and solving the number 1 issue that people have when they're trying to get into real estate, I think it's incredible. And I appreciate what you guys are doing. And I'm a big proponent of y'all and what you're doing.
All right, Brian. Well, we appreciate you having on, coming up here from Birmingham. So thank you all for tuning in.